So I want to talk about marriage, and I want to talk about some components that is important before you get married. I think the first component that we should think about before marriage is faith. And when you're looking for a wife or a husband, I think faith is the foundation, the rock that you should build your marriage on. So let's give an example. Say someone meets a Christian and they say, oh, I'm a Christian, you're a Christian. I'm not talking about just because they two both are Christians, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're ready to get married. I believe someone who is committed to their Christian faith and someone else is committed to a Christian faith, that could be a great starting point. Because a lot of the times people can say, yeah, I'm a Christian, but they're not necessarily practicing their Christian faith or walking in that proximity with God. So I think it's very important to have somebody to walk in that same faith. So for me, choosing my wife, Melanie, that was something very important to me. That drew me closer to her was her faith, and how she was always trying to find ways to get closer to God. And we were friends at the time. I helped her notice certain blind spots that she didn't see. And so when you think about blind spots, you can be driving and you're looking forward, the car, and you can look to the rearview mirror, and then there can be a car there, and you may not see that car, but when you look over, boom, the car is right there. And so I was able to see certain things in her life and point out those blind spots. Another point, I think, point number two, I think someone else should look for in finding a mate in marriage, and things that they should discuss is children. Do they have children already, and are they willing to blend families, and what characteristics do they see in that person? Will they be a great father? How do they treat their parents, their mother, their brother, their siblings? Because that would be great indicators to see how that person treats other people. And my secret is watch somebody when they're not watching. And so what I mean is, by saying that, is when somebody knows that you're watching them, like a child, what are they going to do? They're going to be on their best behavior, right? And so my little secret is to watch people when they think I'm not watching. And then I watch them, and I study them, and I study their patterns. So that's what I did with my wife as well. I watched her. But she was my friend, so I literally watched everyone, just because I like to observe people. And a lot of characteristics stood out to me with her. And then thirdly, I think another important point for marriage is your education. What is your education level? Some people may say, well, college is not important. It depends on the person. We live in a world where you have to get student loans, and I believe if someone has to get student loans to go to school and their description for their job does not match up for what it's going to pay them, I don't think you should go to college, in my personal opinion. But I believe knowledge is important. So just because you don't go to school, you still have to acquire knowledge. So is that person on that same level with you intellectually? Can they stimulate your mind? Can they challenge you in a certain way that a partner can do? Because a lot of times people think about marriage, oh my God, I love him, I love her. That's important. However, I think the partnership is first. It's before God. It's a partnership, meaning you're going to build something, you're going to dominate. And God looks at that person as a helpmate and as your equal. And that's how I see it. And lastly, I would say what's extremely important would be in-laws and how that relationship looks. Like the Bible says, cling on to your wife and depart from your parents' home. And so a lot of the times, like me, I was a mama's boy. You know, my mama did a lot of things for me, and I was a mama's boy. And mama's boys know, you know, we get what we want, and we are pretty privileged, and I would say the least. And so once I got married, I knew that had to change. I had to cleave onto my wife. And that process should be discussed with your mom and your parents beforehand, because it can be a hurtful experience for both parties. And I think both parties should be on that same page. Brain freeze. Yeah, they should be on that same page and look into understanding your partner. Stomach butt. That's my stomach butt. Be on the same page, looking for a partner that understands that you guys, you man and woman, are becoming one flesh. Because once you guys are one flesh, you're not going to allow other entities to disrupt this pattern. So even if the wife is really close to their dad, and the man and husband is really close to their mom, not to say that they can't be close. However, once being one flesh, there's going to be boundaries around that relationship to protect that entity and that relationship, if that makes sense. So those are the 4 things I think people should acknowledge and look into when finding a spouse. And I think those are not the only 4 things, but I think that the 4 major things, because I believe with faith alone, that covers practically everything. But when you dig deep into faith, you can find a lot about your partner and yourself, and then all the other areas as well. Yeah. Especially finances. I think finances probably one of the biggest ones. The Bible says the borrower is a slave to the lender. And so if that's the case, what does the person's debt look like? If the person's in debt, like, imagine marrying somebody in debt, that becomes your debt. And so now, if you say, okay, I can marry someone with debt, but do they still have the mindset of debt? Like my mom will say, lave me sire aset, meaning wash my hands and wipe it with a dirty floor. So you can wash your hands, but if somebody is constantly dirty in your hands, you're always gonna, that couple will always be in debt. One person is saving, the other one is spending, the other one's spending, the other one's saving, and you never get to find a common ground because you guys are not on that same mindset. And I've been really blessed where my wife and I are on the same mindset. We don't believe in debt because we are no slave. We are no slave, because who the Son sets free is free indeed, and that's what the Bible says. And we're followers of Jesus. So how you're a follower of Jesus and you're drowning in debt, and He calls you free? He calls you a son. He calls you a daughter. And I think finances are very important in understanding how do you plan finances, how do you organize finances, how do you invest finances, how do you multiply finances. And that's a process within itself, but it starts with your behavior and your mindset, and not ignoring those red flags, because you can love Jesus all you want and God can bless you, and if there's leaks in your bank account and in your life, those blessings, think of it like a cup. If water goes in a cup and there's a whole bunch of leaks, everything is just going to keep spewing out, keep spewing out, keep spewing out. And so you want to patch up those leaks. I couldn't stress that the most. So yeah, I would add on finances and put those 5 things. And finding a spouse. Definitely talk about those things and court, and go through the process of courting, and not just, oh, I want a girlfriend. Build a relationship, a bond. Something that is special, something that will last for eternity. And that person can invest in you and you invest in them.